Today, I want to talk about connecting with kids, sharing the gospel with kids, and other kid ministry resources in this edition of Connecting Faith and Life. Hello, Mr. Brown, Proclaim Ministries, helping connect faith and life. In a previous podcast, I talked about kids ministry. I did an interview with Pastor Travis Osborne at VC Family Church, and I kind of talked about before that conversation about kids ministry. And I don't want to be a person to criticize and put down. I want to lift up. I want to provide resources. So if I see something and I can have something to share to make it better, I want to share. Kind of like I heard this statement before in the family. If a kid said, "Hey, man, the floor is pretty dirty," the father said, "Job seen, job assigned." And maybe that's for you. Maybe you get angsty or you get kind of frustrated about some things going on in your church, in your neighborhood, in your community. Maybe that's meant for you to do something about it. Like not just complain, but hey, can I bring a solution? Can I bring some resources to that problem? So I want to share today some resources that we've created through Proclaim Ministries to help you connect faith and life, but also to help you in kids ministry. So I would suggest the best way to get these resources is to either go to our website, proclaimministry.com, which I'm going to walk you through, or our app. Our app, I think, is the best way to get to the resources because right there on your phone or your tablet, you can watch them and not get distracted by stuff on YouTube. Now, the third way is through YouTube. I put all the stuff on YouTube for free. Can y'all say for free? It's for free. So I want to provide these resources to you because I don't want to be a person just complaining and pointing at the mistakes without offering a solution. And again, coming together because we have a mandate, I believe, to reach our kids with the gospel. As a parent, I'm supposed to teach my kids as I walk, as I talk. Deuteronomy talked about that. And then in Psalm 78, it talks about how we are to teach the next generation these things about the Lord. And so I think it's important that we first start with our own kids in our own house, but also reaching the kids in our church and our community with the gospel. But it can be difficult. Now, how do you teach kids? I had the privilege of being trained over the years through Child Evangelism Fellowship, but I also want to take some of that training and give it to you as well for free because I think it's so important. So let me just start by saying this. I don't want anybody to feel overwhelmed as I give you all these resources, but hopefully they can be helpful to you in some way. And I'm going to take something that happened recently in our car. So me and my daughter, we get in the car to go somewhere. As soon as we get in the car, started up, ready to go, my phone connects to the CarPlay. And so it starts to play the last thing I was listening to and happened to be a podcast by John Maxwell. And in this podcast, he will share a clip, or the host will share a clip of his message, and then two of them will talk about, the message. And so we're listening to it, and my daughter, I think she said something, or her facial said something, she didn't want to listen to it. And I teach my kids all the time, the driver has to be comfortable. So when it comes to temperature in the car, whether it comes to what they're listening to, the driver comes first because you don't want the driver to fall asleep. And, the driver has to be comfortable as they drive the vehicle. And second thing, I kind of channel some of my grandfather because my grandfather, he drove us around town all the time. He didn't care what we want to listen to. I don't think he ever asked us. He would listen to what he listened to because he's the driver. And you know what? I learned so much from listening to what he was listening to. And so I just kind of, sometimes I will let my kids listen to music and sometimes take requests. But if I'm listening to something, hey, they can listen to it too. And I've learned over the years that they actually pay attention. They're captive audience. My older daughter, Jasmine, I would always pick her and her friends up and drive them around town, and I would listen to music with them all the time. But sometimes I listen to a sermon. If they get in the car, I'm listening to a sermon, I'm going to keep listening to my sermon. And one day my daughter, Jasmine, said to me, she says, "Daddy, it's like you go to church every day because you listen to sermons all the time." Guess what? And I remember one time I was driving with them. It was her, another friend named Jasmine, Jennifer, and Justin. They were little, and we were driving. And then I was playing Tony Evans' message, and he asked a question about something, just a rhetorical question in the sermon, and the kids answered it. I'm like, they're actually paying attention. So anyway, I digress on that. Going back to my daughter, Sophia, right in the car with her, and then we were listening, and then in the message, John Maxwell said something, and we both looked at each other, and we're like, whoa, that's deep. And so it let me realize that she was actually listening. And I want to share the quote with you because I think this will apply to you. If you are new to kids ministry or you're even thinking about getting in kids ministry, it can be overwhelming to think, oh, I got to get everything right. I got to do it well. I got to do it perfect. And we put this pressure on ourselves. And he said this quote that I think I'm going to do a separate video on, but I think is so important for anybody who's beginning something. He said this: "The goal in the beginning is not to do well, but to begin." Think about that. The goal in beginning something at the beginning is not to do well at something. It is simply to begin. That's the goal, to begin, to get started. So I don't want you to feel overwhelmed by these resources I give you. And you go, well, wow, I don't know. Listen, I didn't know anything either when I got involved in kids ministry. I made so many mistakes, but I began. And as a matter of fact, as I share with some of these resources to you, you may watch one of the videos and be like, my kids did. My kids, I was clicking through some videos and they were in the studio with me and they were like, ugh. I'm like, what? That's me. Like, you don't even have a beard. And the video is so, the quality, they were just kind of putting it down. I mean, they act like it was black and white from the some 1700s or something, right? They thought it was horrible. It wasn't that long ago, first of all. But also, hey, it is what it is. The content was still good. And I'm like, I don't look that bad, kids. So as you watch these videos, you may think, oh, yeah, Mr. Brown looks a little different. Yeah, I did. But this is evidence that you don't have to have everything perfect. You don't have to have everything all put together. Just begin. Get involved with Kids Ministry. Maybe you've been involved with Kids Ministry for a while. Hopefully some of these resources will be a reminder or useful for you in some way. I love what I learned from Pastor Travis a long time ago. I never forgot this. He would pray as he opened the Word of God with us that God would teach us something new or remind us of something true. As I share these resources with you, you may be like, oh, I know that already. But guess what? It's good to be reminded. And that's one reason I love doing teacher training too, because as I share with others, it reminds me to do some stuff that I need to do as well. So as you visit our website, I would say go to proclaimministry.com and click on the resource tab and look for kids. As you get to the kids ministry section, you will find, you can sign up for our email and get an email about kids ministry stuff, but you will find some sections on here. You'll find for kids, for parents, for leaders. You will see some of my previous Vacation Bible School resource. You can watch some of those videos if you'd like to. But under kids section, you will see we have all kind of resources for kids, whether it be Bible lessons, memory verses, Q&A for kids, again, a promotion for our app. Go back and then you will see things for leaders. And under the leaders section, you go to parents if you're a parent too, but go to leaders section. I'm going to talk about these resources today. There's all kinds of videos. We're going to talk about some of those resources right now. But one I want to talk about is not on this page. Maybe I'll put it on this page later, but it's under the training tab. I'm putting all of our resources under the training tab. I'm going to put them in two different places because I do training for youth workers too. There's one series called Epic Teaching. And this series, if you're a person that presents in front of an audience, you present your teaching in some aspect, this may be a good resource for you. I learned this a long time ago. It's called Epic Teaching. It stands for experiential, participatory, image-driven, connecting. Those are the 4 key things I try to include whenever I speak, whether it's with kids, with adults, with teenagers, when I'm in public schools. I try to incorporate these things in some way. I try to make an experience for someone, for the audience. Like, there's an experience. It's not just me lecturing, but there's an experience going on. Whether that is interaction talking, whether that is me being silly. I don't think I'm funny, but kids think I am. But there's some kind of experience. They're engaged in some way. But then also participatory. I'm getting them to participate. Like to choose well, oh yeah, I'm doing something to get them to participate with me as I'm speaking. I kind of like, it's a journey, and when you get someone, like if you get a volunteer to come up and do something, it gets everybody's attention. And even if they're not participating, they feel like they are because they're watching someone else participate, and they're like, oh, what's going to happen? That's the experience. Somebody's up on stage and doing something. What's going to take place? And so it gets them involved. Then thirdly, image-driven. I think it's so important that we use images, especially with kids. I think it's so important to have them look at a visual of something, whether you're holding it, whether it's a keynote or a PowerPoint, do something. And not a PowerPoint with a bunch of words, like bullet points and words. Put a sentence, a phrase on the screen. Put an image of some kid doing something or something along with it, because I think that's so important. And there's so many apps out there. Some are free, some are paid, but like Canva may be one where you can just create something. I use Adobe Express where we create these images and things to help engage them. Because think about this, and when you're engaging the audience, not just kids anymore, anyone, we're used to watching television, watching YouTube videos, watching things, and there's something always going on. So I think it's important that we, in the same way, use things to engage them. So image-driven. And then lastly, connecting. What am I helping them connect to? I look at it this way. As I'm speaking or presenting something or teaching, I want to take them from the known to the unknown. I want to connect with them, something they know, something they've experienced, and take them to something I want to share with them. How it's connected to their life, how it's connected to something they understand. They can understand something new as I teach them. So check out that series. And I like teaching these things because if I'm teaching them, I'm reminded to do them too. Do I always do these things? No, but I want to be growing in my own presentation skills. So check it out. If you got questions, let me know. As you look at the resource button, there's a questions section. You can submit a question to me about training, about teaching, whatever, and I would love to get with you and maybe make a video about those questions. Just fill out the form about questions. So go back to the kids ministry section. As you go back and click under leaders again, and as we go through, I want to talk about some of the resources we have for leaders. some how-to videos. And the first one is how to connect with children. I call them children back then, but they're kids. In my ministry, I like to call kids elementary, and then students or youth would be students. So, K through 5 would be considered maybe kids, 6 through 12 or would be students. So connecting with children or connecting with kids, I think is so important to connect with them. So this is a 4-part series on how to connect with students or connect with kids. And some of these principles can be used when it comes to teenagers as well. And in the intro, I think we actually have a PDF and we're doing a crossword puzzle. As a matter of fact, yes, we are. So we do a crossword puzzle here. You can download this crossword puzzle from Google Drive. And as you look at this crossword puzzle, I kind of just go through this crossword puzzle to explain ways to connect with kids. And I want to talk about the first one. Number 1, hearken. That word is listen. Like the idea, we need to listen to kids. Listen to them talk about nothing and everything. Because when you do that, they will talk about nothing and everything. If they know that you care about them, that they can feel seen and heard by you, they will talk. But guess what? It opens the door for them to listen to you. It gives you some I hate to call it street cred, but it gives you some reciprocity. Is that the big word I'm looking for? But it gives you that idea. And even with adults, when people listen to you, are you more apt to listen to them? So that's one of the key things when it comes to connecting with kids, connecting with students, connecting with whoever. It can be applied to kids and kids ministry, is listen. Not just be the one always talking, but take time to listen to them. So check out that entire series. I think it's a good series. And again, I may look a little different than I do now because my kids thought so, but check out that series because I think this is the key point or one of the first things to do. Learn how to listen to them. And we talk about a lot of things in this series. So check out this series, Connecting with Kids or Connecting with Students, whatever you want to call it. Next one I want to talk about is how to share the gospel with kids. I have a whole series here called Gospel for Kids. Now, the truth is this. There is not a gospel for kids and one for adults. It's the same gospel message. And there's some key elements we need to present, but I think in this series, we talk about how to present them in a way that kids can understand them. We don't use big words, of course, but we want to walk kids through the idea of who is God, what is sin, what's the solution for sin, what do you do with that? So how do you appropriate that? What do you do with that? And then how to grow. So I go through that in this series with kids, let them understand, help you understand how to share the gospel with kids. And I want to say this up front. Sharing the gospel with kids can be so difficult because I think there's spiritual warfare going on. Yes, I think we give them information, but when it comes to them trusting, and I think there's pressure that we put on ourselves that if I present perfectly, then this kid will get saved every time, or kids will get saved every time. That's not true. This is the work of God, and I want to encourage you. No one comes to the Father unless the Spirit draws them. That God is doing a work in these kids' lives. And even understand this, I can do everything right, and it's not the time. And I think we have to be content with planting the seed and let God grow that seed. Because many of us didn't trust Christ the first time we heard the message. Is God doing the work? God is drawing. And we have to trust God. We have to trust the message and trust that the power is not in us. The power is in the message. Paul said in Romans 1:16 that I'm not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God and salvation to those who believe. The power is not in us. It's not in the messengers. It's in the message. And the fact that God will use this message when and how he wants to. We have to be faithful in sharing that message from the little ones to the older ones to the real old ones. Recently at a church, that pastor preached the gospel and gave an invitation. And you would think, oh, most of these people are saved. You would make that assumption. But guess what? Some people raise their hand to trust Christ for the first time. So our job is not to go out and get people saved, or some people say to win souls. I get what they're saying, but our job is to preach the gospel, to preach it in season, out of season, to present this good news and let God do the work, not to be ashamed of this message and be captivated by the message. Because if we're bored with it, everybody else gonna be bored with it too. This message is amazing that God has sent his son to be the savior of the world, that we were all lost in sin. And letting kids know, listen, you're lost, you're hopeless, that you deserve the penalty of death, separation from God forever, because you sinned. And they all know they've sinned. And don't be afraid to tell kids they've sinned. They know it. And that's the bad news. But what's the good news? I talked to my daughter today. I came in, you want the bad news or good news first? My son said, the bad news, because then it'll get better, right? Truthfully, let's give the bad news so they can be set up for the good news. Or I did a video, the gooder news. This is gooder news, anything you've ever heard before, that Jesus Christ came to die for our sins. So in this series, we talk about the gospel for children. So check that out. And again, There's many other resources, but I want to share some of mine. There's other resources as well. Child Evangelism Fellowship, CEF, has some resources as well, but I'm sharing mine today. So if you go back to the kids section, let's go back and talk about one other series or the other two series that are available here. So we have How to Teach a Memory Verse. We do a lot of memory verses in our kids ministry, and I make a lot online. So I talk about how to do a memory verse. Also classroom management, and I'm going to update that in the future. We call it the SMILE technique. I wouldn't call it more of classroom connection versus classroom management, because you can manage your environment, which we talk about in this series, but I think you really connect with kids. So check that out. SMILE technique, it stands for set the authority, maintain the authority, invest, love, and enjoy. But check out the series, that one there. And lastly, I want to talk about our vlog. I'm creating a kids ministry leaders vlog where I just do one-off videos. So in this one, I talk about where do we find purpose. And these videos are meant to encourage you and to give you resources. So some of these videos in the vlog section will be about helping you, encouraging you, because it is hard to be a leader. It's hard to, some people say it's lonely at the top. I don't know what that is to be on the top, but I know it can be lonely to lead. Maybe you have a passion for kids ministry, and maybe you're not the kids ministry director or pastor, but you have a passion, and maybe you don't see other people with that passion. What does that mean for you? I want to encourage you in this, because I think it's important. If God is giving you that desire to reach kids, hey, grow in that desire, grow in that ministry that God has given you. And everybody won't always have the same vision. Some people really do think it's just babysitting. And I think it's more than that. God is doing a work in these kids, and God will do and desires to do work through you. But make sure you're doing it. So make sure that you are staying connected yourself. So in this series, I talk about learning my main purpose of kids ministry. I talk about the Trinity, an easy way for kids to understand the Trinity. Where should we invest kids ministry? Can kids be saved? And I make a lot of these videos. And so check them out. I want these resources to be available and used for you as you're on your journey. And maybe this podcast is not for you. Maybe you're hearing this to share with your kids ministry leader at church or your kids pastor, and do it in a way that's helpful. Not like, hey, listen to Mr. Brown, he know what he's talking about. Look, do it in a way to say, hey, here's some resource that might be useful. Hey, check them out. I just want to make these things available. And part of this is me being faithful to what God has given me. And I really struggle sometimes with promoting these videos. And recently, our church did a Vacation Bible School. I keep talking about it, Quest. We just did it. And I just felt important to share some resources with the VBS team. And so I shared these resources, this link. And the next day, one of the leaders came to me and said, Mr. Brown, I watched all your videos last night. I'm like, for real? Like all of them? She's like, they were very, very helpful. You know what? That made me smile, because at the end of the day, it's not about me. It's about what God has done and what God is doing. I'm simply a steward, and I want to be faithful to be a good steward of what God has given me. So, hey, I'm giving them to you to use how you want to use them. So let me know if they're useful. You can leave a comment on some of them, but always submit a question or go to our contact page and get in touch. And hopefully these resources will be useful for you, not just in your ministry, but in your life, to help you live for God by connecting faith and life. Till next time, peace. Maybe I'll do a video talk about why I say peace in the video. But anyway, peace.